Something just blew up at SpaceX's Starbase facility in Texas. And it happened right before one of the most important rocket launches in human history. A massive explosion rocked the ground support systems of the world's most powerful rocket, sending debris flying through the air, shutting down critical systems, and throwing the entire launch schedule into serious question. And the wildest part? This wasn't the rocket itself. This was the system designed to protect the rocket. So what actually exploded, why did it happen, and what does this mean for Starship's next flight? Let's break it all down, because the full story is far more fascinating than the headlines are telling you. To understand what just happened, you need to understand what SpaceX has been building toward for the past 2 years. Starship Flight 12 is not just another test. It is the debut of an entirely new generation of rocket called Starship version 3, and it is the single most ambitious rocket upgrade in the history of the program. The vehicle flying on Flight 12 is built around Super Heavy Booster 19 paired with Ship 39. These are not incremental updates to what came before. They represent a complete redesign from the ground up. Booster 19 stands taller than its predecessors, carries more propellant, and is powered by 33 brand new Raptor 3 engines. Each Raptor 3 engine produces approximately 280 tons of thrust, which is roughly 22% more than the Raptor 2 engines used in previous flights. When all 33 engines fire together, the total booster thrust exceeds 9,200 tons of force. That number is so large, it is almost impossible to comprehend. To put it in perspective, that is more thrust than any rocket ever built in human history, by a significant margin. Ship 39, the upper stage, carries 6 Raptor 3 engines, 3 optimized for sea-level operation, and 3 vacuum-optimized engines for use in the upper atmosphere and beyond. He version 3 vehicle is projected to carry more than 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit in a reusable configuration. That is nearly 3 times the payload capacity of the previous generation that flew through Flight 11. This is not an upgrade. This is a generational leap. Flight 12 also marks the first ever launch from Starbase's brand new second launch pad known as Pad 2. SpaceX built this pad from scratch alongside all the lessons learned from operating and rebuilding Pad 1. Pad 2 features a redesigned orbital launch mount, updated structural systems, and critically, a completely reworked ground support infrastructure to handle the enormous forces produced by 33 Raptor 3 engines firing simultaneously. For months, SpaceX has been conducting testing at Pad 2 in preparation for this moment. In April 2026, SpaceX achieved a major milestone when it successfully completed a full 33-engine static fire test of Booster 19 at Pad 2. Every single Raptor 3 engine ignited at full power. The pad held, the booster performed, and the team celebrated. Then just days later, Ship 39 completed its own 6-engine static fire test at SpaceX's secondary test facility. Both vehicles were cleared. Everything looked ready. The launch date of May 12, 2026 was set, and then the explosion happened. On Sunday, May 4th, 2026, SpaceX was conducting what should have been a routine test of the Water Deluge System at Pad 2. Cameras operated by NASA Spaceflight were streaming live from Starbase when the incident occurred. In the footage, you can see a sudden flash followed by a violent eruption of water shooting straight up into the air. And then a large object, a significant piece of hardware, being thrown outward in a high arc beyond the boundaries of the test site. The deluge system immediately shut down. The test was aborted. And within hours, the space community was buzzing with questions about what exactly had just happened and what it meant for the May 12th launch. So what actually exploded? Based on reporting from Next Big Future and analysis from the broader spaceflight community, the object that failed was a methylox gas generator. This is a component that burns a small mixture of methane and liquid oxygen to produce high-pressure nitrogen gas. That pressurized nitrogen is what drives the water through the deluge system at the enormous flow rates required during a Starship launch. When this gas generator failed, it failed catastrophically. Tee explosion sent roof panels and debris flying around the surrounding area. It was not a small anomaly. It was a significant hardware failure in a system that sits right at the heart of Pad 2's launch operations. To understand why this matters so much, you need to understand what the Water Deluge System actually does and why SpaceX needed it in the first place. Cast your mind back to April 20th, 2023, when Starship flew for the very first time. That flight, while historic, caused massive damage to the launch pad. The combined power of 33 Raptor 2 engines produced such tremendous acoustic energy and heat that chunks of concrete were ripped from the pad and hurled for miles in every direction. The shockwave was visible from space. Debris rained down on the surrounding environment. It was, by any measure, a catastrophic outcome for the launch infrastructure even as the rocket itself flew. SpaceX learned a brutal lesson that day. You cannot launch Starship without serious heat and sound suppression at the pad level. The Water Deluge System was SpaceX's answer to that problem. Installed after Flight 1 and first tested in July 2023, the system is designed to spray an absolutely staggering volume of water directly beneath the rocket at the moment of engine ignition. The water does not cool the engines. The water absorbs the acoustic energy, the pressure waves, and the radiant heat produced by the exhaust plume. As the water hits the heat, the vast majority of it vaporizes instantly into steam, which carries the energy away from the pad structure. The original system on Pad 1 was capable of releasing approximately 350,000 gallons of water during a single launch event. Pad 2 was engineered with an updated version of this system designed to handle the even greater forces produced by the newer, more powerful Raptor 3 engines. The entire system sits at the foundation of Starship's ability to launch repeatedly without destroying the pad each time. And on Sunday, a core component of that system exploded before Flight 12 even left the ground. This incident did not come entirely out of nowhere. SpaceX had already acknowledged that the Deluge system at Pad 2 had been giving them trouble. In a mini-documentary series released just before the incident titled Test Like You Fly, SpaceX engineers revealed that during 2 previous static fire attempts of Booster 19, the ground support equipment for the Water Deluge system had triggered an automatic abort on both occasions. The system was detecting something it did not like and was shutting itself down before the test could complete. That is actually the system working as intended. It aborted, rather than allowing an unsafe condition to continue. But it also meant there was a known unresolved issue with the Deluge hardware going into the May 4th test. The Sunday high-volume Deluge test was almost certainly an attempt to diagnose and resolve whatever had been causing those earlier automatic aborts. Instead of finding the solution, the team found a much bigger problem. The specific component that failed, the Methalox gas generator, is an interesting piece of hardware in the context of Starship's development. It is somewhat ironic and worth noting that one of the major improvements introduced in the Raptor 3 engine was the elimination of the external gas generator from the engine itself. SpaceX engineers simplified the Raptor 3's external plumbing specifically to remove components that added complexity and potential failure points. The idea was to make the engine cleaner, simpler, and more reliable. And yet here, in the ground support equipment supporting those same Raptor 3 engines, a gas generator failed in a significant way. It is a reminder that, in rocketry, simplification in one area does not automatically eliminate complexity everywhere. The ground systems supporting a launch are themselves extraordinarily complex machines. The immediate question everyone is asking is what this means for the May 12th launch date. Based on available reporting, the answer is that the date is almost certainly going to slip. Analysts and reporters covering the story have suggested a delay of 1 to 2 weeks is the most likely outcome, pushing the launch into late May 2026 at the earliest. The good news, and there genuinely is good news here, is that the explosion appears to have been contained to the gas generator and some surrounding roof panels and overhead cover. There does not appear to be major structural damage to Pad 2 itself, to the flame trench, or to the orbital launch mount. Booster 19 and Ship 39 themselves were not harmed. The rocket is fine. The pad infrastructure appears intact. What SpaceX needs to do now is assess the full extent of the damage, understand exactly why the gas generator failed, replace or repair the affected components, and then retest the complete Deluge system to confirm it functions correctly before any launch attempt can be made. It is also worth stepping back and putting this event in the context of SpaceX's overall development philosophy. SpaceX operates under a principle that the company's leadership has described as "test like you fly," which is also, not coincidentally, the title of the documentary series they just released. The idea is that you push hardware to its limits in ground testing so that you discover failures on the ground rather than in the air. A gas generator failing during a ground test of the Deluge system is exactly the kind of outcome this philosophy is designed to produce. Yes, it is a setback. Yes, it creates a delay. But discovering this failure during a ground test is infinitely better than discovering it during an actual launch attempt. If the Deluge system had failed during Starship's ignition sequence, the consequences for the pad and potentially for the vehicle itself could have been severe. This event fits into a broader pattern that has characterized the entire Starship development journey in recent months. In June 2025, Ship 36 suffered a catastrophic explosion during a static fire test caused by a composite overwrapped pressure vessel failure. That explosion shut down SpaceX's Massey test site for months, while repairs were completed. In November 2025, Booster 18 was destroyed during a cryogenic pressure test when an anomaly in its liquid oxygen tank caused it to rupture violently. SpaceX responded by immediately beginning work on Booster 19, completing the full stack. In just 25 days, roughly half the time it had taken for previous boosters. Last month, a Raptor engine test at SpaceX's McGregor test site in Texas also resulted in a significant explosion. Each of these incidents was followed by analysis, redesign, repair, and an accelerated return to testing. The Water Deluge explosion follows the same pattern. SpaceX will assess, repair, and move forward. The question is simply how long that takes. What makes Flight 12 so significant, and why the entire aerospace world is watching so closely, goes well beyond the immediate drama of the explosion. This flight represents a fundamental shift in what Starship is capable of. The jump from roughly 35 metric tons to over 100 metric tons of payload capacity to low Earth orbit is not a small improvement. It changes the economics and the physics of nearly everything SpaceX is planning to do in the coming years. For the Starlink program, a version 3 Starship can carry approximately 3 times as many satellites per launch compared to the previous generation, compressing the timeline for deploying new constellation upgrades by a significant factor. For NASA's Artemis program, which relies on Starship as the human landing system for returning astronauts to the moon, the increased performance margin reduces mission risk and provides greater flexibility in how lunar operations are planned and executed. For SpaceX's long-term vision of sending humans to Mars, version 3 performance is not optional. It is essential. The architecture that SpaceX has described for Mars missions depends on being able to move truly enormous quantities of propellant and cargo in a small number of launches. Flight 12 is also significant because it marks the first operational use of Pad 2. The existence of 2 launch pads at Starbase completely changes the tempo at which SpaceX can operate. With a single pad, every launch requires that same pad to be inspected, recertified, and prepared before the next flight can take place. With 2 pads, SpaceX can run parallel preparation campaigns. While one pad is being serviced after a flight, the other can be loading propellant and preparing a new rocket. This capability is central to SpaceX's stated goal of dramatically increasing Starship's launch cadence in the coming years, potentially reaching dozens of flights annually as the program matures. The Deluge System explosion specifically affects this second pad, which means it is not just a problem for Flight 12. It is a problem for every future flight that was planned to use Pad 2. Getting the system fixed and proven reliable is not just about launching on May 12th. It is about ensuring that Pad 2 can be a dependable part of SpaceX's launch infrastructure for years to come. As of today, SpaceX has not released an official updated launch timeline. What we know is that the explosion was significant enough to shut down the Deluge test immediately, hardware was visibly destroyed, and debris was thrown beyond the test perimeter. Similar issues had already been flagged in the same system before Sunday's event, and yet SpaceX has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to respond to ground system failures faster than most observers expect. The team that stacked Booster 19 in 25 days after Booster 18's destruction is the same team now looking at this problem. They are not panicking, they are diagnosing. Flight 12 will happen, Booster 19 is ready, Ship 39 is ready, Pad 2's core structure is intact. The only thing standing between SpaceX and the most powerful rocket launch in history is a repaired Deluge system and a proven test confirming it works. And when that rocket finally lifts off, whether May 12th or late May, every explosion, every abort, and every debris-throwing ground test will have played its role in making sure it gets off the pad safely. That is what building the future actually looks like.